everybody. I'm not Tico. My name is Mike Rocco. It's wonderful to see all of you. I am the president and CEO of the Marines Association and Foundation. Took over from Jan Hewley about 10 months ago, and I'm absolutely honored. It's just absolutely exciting to see all of you here. This is our first live event since COVID. So, thank you. Yep. So my wife and I, I started here. My wife and I moved up here in November, and if you can picture The Shining, Jack Nicholson, the height of COVID, 136 rooms, and maybe 1 or 2 occupied. So I can't tell you just how thrilled I am to really see all and get life back into it. And the good thing about it is this place is not haunted, because if it was haunted, I would have seen a ghost. So none of that. But seriously, thank you all. It's wonderful to see you all. I really like to thank our chairman of the association, Mr. Rick Hartnack, who's here. Round of applause. Mr. Barry Graham and his wife Juliana are the chairman of the Marines Memorial Foundation. To fellow board members, to the members, and to the guests, thank you. We couldn't have done this and done what we've done through COVID without the support of all of you. So I really do. Give yourself a round of applause. Thank you very much. Okay, so we have a wonderful speaker tonight, Lt Tice. I won't start the roast. We have a narrator who I'm going to introduce, but Jeff is an aviator, F-16 pilot. We were in Desert Storm together. Somehow he got back to the States before I did, but I'll let him cover that. And one of the keys to a successful pilot is landings equal takeoffs. Another thing that Tico will go into. But I will say, a cheap shot, I know. But I will say his American Airlines experience has been where his landings did equal his takeoff, so that's good news. But enough on the roast for Tico. But for the narrator, Doug Porter, who's another naval aviator, and he's gotten to be a very good friend in the short time that I've got to know him. Just phenomenal work, lives down, and he's just a huge supporter here of the board member, and a huge supporter. And Doug, I can't thank you enough for all that you've done. Fellow naval aviator, round of applause, and our narrator.
Thank you. Thank you, General Rocco. So we got a Marine pilot introducing a Navy pilot who's introducing an Air Force pilot. There's got to be a joke in there somewhere, I don't know. But on behalf of the board, when General Rocco joined us at the end of last year, he has done one hell of a job. This is a tough circumstance, and we're so thrilled to have him. So how about a hand for General Rocco? Actually, and most people don't know this, it was a 2-for-1 deal. His wife, Susan, is even better, but she's with the grandkids today in Long Beach. So I'd like to also welcome the board and acknowledge General Hanlon and Admiral Dumont. There's Admiral Dumont and General Hanlon. Thank you for what you do for our board. So as I was thinking a little bit tonight about how to introduce this wonderful speaker and all he's done in the service of this country, you know, I got to thinking, as many of us have joined the military, or maybe our spouses joined the military, we all have some hesitation going in. I mean, we're excited, we're looking forward to gaining a new skill, exhibiting leadership, but there's something in the back of the mind that says you're going to put yourself, or you have to be prepared to put yourself at risk. That's what the military is there for, to lead the fight, and you will be in harm's way at some point. The question is, how are you going to react? You know, and you'd like to think you're full of courage and perseverance and all that. But truthfully, we all have a little doubt in our mind of when the stuff hits the fan, how are we going to be? Then you get in the military and you get trained in your skill, and maybe it's jungle survival school or POW school or some harrowing experience, and you find out a little bit more, but you also find out that you have a long way to go, that you have some gaps. Maybe you're not quite as brave as you thought you were. Well, our speaker tonight has not only been shot at with something they call SAMs, surface-to-air missiles. He's had to leave the airplane, hence one less landing than takeoff. He's faced unbearable conditions for 6 weeks in a prison operated by Saddam. He's persevered. He came through it with courage, bravery, and everything. So you didn't come here to listen to me. Without anything further to say, I'd like to introduce Lieutenant Colonel Jeff Tice.
The best part was I didn't trip on the way up, so that's good. I didn't pull a Jerry Ford. And I try not to look at my watch like Joe Biden. I like to tell the story, and first of all, I tell it with a little bit of levity because otherwise it would become such a very depressing story that nobody would want to go eat dinner after this. So that's why I start out with, I was a guest of Saddam, and one of his henchmen told me that one time. But I call this a yawn. It stands for yet another war narrative. So let's go through a little bit of ministrivia first. Please turn off all your personal electronic devices or put them on vibrate. Please do not record this session because it's being recorded right now and it will appear on the website. So if you want to watch it or play my stuff back and fact check me, please do. It'll happen, but please don't record it for yourself. Number 3, hey, these are my opinions. It is not official gospel. It's an R-rated, so be prepared. You have to excuse me using TLAs and FLAs. What are they? 3-letter acronyms, 4-letter acronyms. So an acronym for acronyms. Hold your questions for the moderator. As they say, you can write your stuff down on a piece of paper, pass it to the center. Chelsea or Mackenzie or someone is going to come by every 10, 15 minutes or so, collect all this stuff up, and then we'll have time for Q&A at the end. And finally, you got to have 3 main points. Any good briefing requires 3 main points. First one is, you're only as good as your training. Doug alluded to some of that early. Your mind is in charge, not your body. Your body is going to quit long before your mind does if you're doing it right. 6 weeks doesn't compare to 6 years. So, with that in mind, let's talk a little bit more. Anybody know the difference between a war story and a fairy tale? A fairy tale starts out, once upon a time. War story starts out, no shit, there I was. Let me tell you a short war story. Now, quick, I was stationed at Torrejon Air Base, Spain, from 1989 until after the war, and that's where I deployed to Qatar from in August of 1990. And we were there from August 26th up until the start of the war on 17th of January of 1991. So we had 4 or 5 months of sitting around in the desert, and we were not having any fun. We were ready to start the war. We were ready to get this thing over with. So everybody was a little bit antsy. I was a major at the time, young, vibrant, all we had to do there, we were very healthy. We had no drinking, there were no women. So you're either working out, you're flying, or you're eating, and that's about all you had to do. So at that time, I probably was in the best physical condition of my life. I weighed approximately 185 pounds. I'm about 190 now. But I had about 7% body fat. And anybody who knows what that means, geez, he was a skinny guy. Yeah, well, there's one thing about being skinny that comes up later, and we'll figure that out in a minute. I'll tell you about the story. But I was shot down on the 3rd day of the war, January 91. And there's this impression that people have about piloting that you're in this nice little cocoon, the cockpit's nice and warm, it's temperature controlled to whatever you want to make it, and you have this wonderful machine that's attached to you and you're part of it, and it's nice and quiet and calm and relaxing. So this is the HUD film. HUD, there's a TLA, sorry, 3-letter acronym. That's heads up display. This is actually filmed from my wingman on that shoot down day. When I got back, the intelligence folks told me that they counted and they looked at everybody's film, and they counted between 9 and 12 missiles were shot at me and my wingman in less than 2 minutes. So the aviators in the audience will understand that you're a pretty busy guy. So I just want to play this. This is fairly short. It's about 30 seconds or so, and it gives you an idea what happens in the cockpit when things are getting exciting.
7 visual left 9. Stroke 4 status. Stroke 4 status. Stroke 3 egressing southeast. Stroke 3 go southeast now.
Bogey, Ike, 09069.
Right, okay, Sam launch, stroke 8, nose 5, low.
Switch, negative contact on your...
Break right. Break right. Stop, stroke 3, telling me.
120 for 7.
Now it's close.
Negative contact.
Second one, break. That's 2. Okay. Cut 6. Stroke 3, defending, nose. Strokes flow south. Stroke 8, line. Stop, rapid south. Another SAM launch, same location. Sam, southeast of the target area. Stroke 8, line. Oh, shit! North SAM launches. Stroke 3 defending.
Oh, enough heavy breathing. That was my wingman, Lt Col Tice, ET. And that film has been played thousands and thousands of times. And it's on the internet. You can go watch it anytime you want. And it still gives me a chill. Well, long story short here is that one of those missiles that you saw in the contrails got a little too close to my airplane. I was doing a similar funky chicken that ET was, and it got a little too close. I had avoided several up to that point in time, and this one, well, I say I have a 32-foot day. The Defense Intelligence Agency said that that particular type of SAM, which surface air missile, SA-3, had a 33-foot lethal radius against an F-16 size target. Well, I had a 32-foot day. They call them missiles for a reason. They don't have to hit you. They can go by you and they'll blow up on a proximity fuse. The warhead on that particular missile is probably about the size of that speaker sitting right there. So when it comes apart, it's gonna make a big hole. Well, it went underneath my airplane. It went by so close I heard it. That's how close it went by. I heard it whoosh right by my airplane. It blew up somewhere underneath the aircraft. As I was rolling upside down to avoid it, it went by me and blew up. And it felt like I hit a little bit of turbulence. We've all been on commercial air flights. You get a little bump and you go, ooh, what was that? Well, that's about exactly what I felt. A little bump. Oh, what was that? Well, then the whole world started to change dramatically. The airplane decided, hey, I got to do something for you here, and it starts shutting things down, and pretty soon the airplane's turning off, turning on, turning off, turning on, turning off, turning on. The F-16 is an electric jet, by the way. If you don't have electricity, you're not flying. So things start shutting up and down, turning off and on, and you're going, uh-oh, this is not good. And then our voice warning system, who we prefer to call Bitch and Betty, because it's a female voice, because men will listen to females, not to males. So Bitch and Betty comes on and says, engine fire, engine fire. And I looked over my shoulder, and the back of my airplane did look like an exploding cigar. It was not good. And there were a lot of things happening very, very quickly. I was able to get the aircraft under control again and fly for about another 2 minutes. And after that point in time, then the airplane really shut down. The engine quit. I became a glider. I was about 100, well, let's see. At that point in time, I was about 180 miles north of the border. The rules of engagement, I didn't even say ROE, did I? The rules of engagement at that time said if you weren't further than 130 miles north, we're not coming for you. There was no search and rescue available. So I'm 180 going, whew, this is gonna be a long glide. You know, I can't quite make it that far. I was in the mid 20,000s when I had to eject. Oh, by the way, it's very cold up there. Anybody have any idea how cold that is? It's about minus 24 centigrade. It's cold. So you jump out. Well, I just didn't want to jump out. I said, I'm gonna hang on to this thing as long as I could. So I'm gliding my way down, and then the airplane decides, not gonna fly anymore. all the hydraulics, something burned through, the airplane pitches up, and I grab the ejection handle, pull the handle, nothing happened. Absolutely nothing happened. And I'm going, oh man, this day is just getting really bad. Airplane's going up into the vertical, the nose is about to cross through the horizon, I'm about to do a loop, uncontrollable. I tried pulling the handle again, and I grabbed it as far as I could. I pulled it all the way up to my chin, and the cable's only 6 inches long, so it was, The F-16 has a 2.5-inch thick, optically clear Lexan canopy, and that is a bulletproof piece of equipment, and you will not be ejected through that. The canopy has to come off first. So if the canopy doesn't come off, you're not going anywhere. Well, the canopy wasn't coming off, and I'm going through up through the vertical. I'm getting a little nervous here. I look over my shoulder, and there's still fire. It's literally licking right behind my head, and I thought, oh, something happened when the damn missile blew up. It had cut one of the lines or something. It's not working. Well, there's a little emergency ejection thing over here where I can get rid of the canopy by reaching over my left hand and pulling up on that thing. Well, if I kept my elbow up like that, it would take my arm off on the way, so you can't do that. You have to, I gotta switch hands. You have to reach across like this and pull the handle. Okay. So I reach across like that, I get my hand on there, and I'm getting ready to pull the handle, and all of a sudden I see a little gap start to grow between the canopy and the aircraft. And I thought, okay, it's gonna work. Close my eyes, pull it back. And next thing I know, I'm kind of outside, and I go, wow, that was interesting. The whole sequence that I just told you about is exactly how it played in my mind. That speed, it took 0.3 of a second. It took 0.3 of a second. So that time, the temporal distortion, time expansion, all those things you hear about in stressful situations, it's very real. It's very real. So I'm out of the airplane, it's cold, I'm falling down. Life is not turning so good to me, but it's almost sundown. People know where I'm at. I'm not hurt. At least I didn't think I was hurt. And I'm still convinced that this thing is not working right. The ejection seat's not working right. I'm falling through the clouds. Oh, clouds are made of water? It's wet. And now I'm wet. Cold, wet, and falling through the clouds. I didn't know where the bottom of the clouds were. I knew where the tops were. And I said, oh, geez, I better get ready to land this parachute. Boom, I get ejected from the seat separates from me. I'm falling down through the clouds in the parachute. And I'm really kind of concerned about what's going to happen here because I don't know where the bottom is. So I get ready for this beautiful parachute fall. As I'm coming down, I break through the clouds. It's still light enough where I can see around me, and I'm looking to the southeast, which is where the wind is blowing me towards that, and I see these large black rectangles on the ground, and I'm thinking, oh man, those are tents. I don't want to be anywhere near that. And I see smoke rising from it. I say, oh, even worse, there's people there. Well, turns out the smoke was bullets. They were shooting at me. So on my way down, stuff is zinging by me, and I had done a little bit of sport parachuting like a knucklehead when I was younger, and I literally just grabbed a handful of the risers and I started bobbing around like you would see in a carnival, trying to make it hard for them to hit me. And I made a perfect parachute landing, toes, knees, nose. Well, at that point in time, and we're going to just fast forward, I'm going to get right here. At that point in time, I had glided quite a ways, and you can see the little arrow with the circle. I ended up hitting the ground somewhere out there in the middle of nowhere, which was really good. I was about 160 miles north of the border. I'm thinking, man, I'm not hurt. I know there's troops coming towards me. I can run this marathon. I can be at 130 miles before sundown at the rate this is going. So I grabbed my hit and run kit, and I took about 4 Jesse Owens-sized strides, and they shot up the ground around me. So I'm not going anywhere. It's one against, there's a dozen guys. So I stopped. Turns out it's a group of Bedouin tribesmen. They don't have any shoes. Most of them didn't have many teeth, but they had brand new AK-47, so I didn't think they were on our side. These guys don't have a country. They roam the desert. That's their life. And they hogtied me and drugged me through the desert for about a half a kilometer, and then they realized this is getting too hard to do, so they took my leg, let me walk. I spent that night with the Bedouins playing games. You've heard of Russian roulette. Well, I played Iraqi roulette. And Iraqi roulette is a little different. Instead of giving you the gun with the bullet and spinning the cylinder and letting you put it against your head, They sat across the fire pit from me with a gun, spun the cylinder, and pointed at me and pulled the trigger. So I got to win that game, which was pretty exciting. The whole evening was kind of like that. They were just trying to see how scared they could make me. Well, my scared meter had already been pegged, so I wasn't going to get any more scared. The next day, they got tired of me, and it turns out they were going to get more money for turning me in alive than the tribe had ever seen in its entire existence. So they drove me to the small little town of Samawa. I don't know if you can see that on the map here. It's right there. So they drove me to Samawa, and they turned me over to the local police there. The guy who was the sheriff, I'm assuming, spoke English with a British accent, and he looked like Jackie Gleason from Smokey and the Bandit. Big rotund gentleman, had a little .32 caliber revolver on his hip. I mean, he was very nice. He was actually quite nice. He asked me if I had eaten yet, and I said, no. So he sat down in a little room, about half the size of this stage, and he brought me something to eat, which I thought was very nice of him. And then we just sat there and looked at each other for about 2 hours. And then in walked, just like every B movie you've ever seen, the two big goons and the small guy in a trench coat. I kid you not. And I stood up, because they stood up, and everybody stood up, and you know, the two goons grabbed me and shoved me back down in the chair. And the sheriff turns to me and says, I must leave you with these men. Good luck. And he walked out. So we get into that mode where the little Nazi-looking guy, for lack of a better term, in the trench coat starts asking me questions, and I'm not interested in talking to him. And of course, he does the veiled threat. Well, you can either talk to me now, or you can talk to my friends in Baghdad. And I just politely said, I think I'll wait for your friends. I guess being a smartass was not one of my better moves. Well, I ended up getting thrown in the back of a 1970s vintage Chevy Bel Air, and off we go to Baghdad. It's now dark. I'm in the back seat, handcuffed behind my back, but I didn't have a blindfold on or anything. And we're driving on this road going from Samawa up to Baghdad. You can see there's only one road, Samawa up to Baghdad. It's quite a ways, 160 miles, so I got a 4-hour ride with these guys. I'm sitting in the back, laying in the back. Two goons, one goon's driving, the little Nazis in the middle, and we're driving on this highway at night, and I'm going, oh, this is very bad. The U.S. military owned the night, and they're bombing anything that's moving, and I am afraid that I'm about ready to get fragged from my own guys. And I kept saying to myself, just get off this road, get off this road, get off this road. Well, they kept on going, and nobody dropped a bomb on my head, thank God, yet. And we ended up in Baghdad. Well, the good news is my target that day before was right about where the A is in Baghdad. There was no electricity in all of Baghdad from day one of the war. As we were driving, I could see lights glowing in the distance. I'm thinking, what in the world is that? It was the oil refinery I bombed the day before. It was still burning. So I got to do my own BDA. Oop, that's another TLA, a bomb damage assessment. It was still burning, and we destroyed that. Completely destroyed that oil refinery. So I felt pretty good at that stage of the game. Good report. Not hurt yet. A small cut under one eye. That's about it. Although the handcuffs they put me in were the kind that every time you move, they click a little tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. By the time I got to Baghdad, I couldn't feel my hands. And as soon as we stopped in this residential neighborhood, goons grabbed me, dragged me out of the car, throw a bag over my head, and that was the last time that I didn't have a blindfold on for the next 5 weeks. So I was either blindfolded or had a bag over my head for the next 5 weeks if I was not in my cell, which was pretty often. I spent a little bit of time. So I was held in 5 different places in and around Baghdad. The first one, turns out, it was an underground bunker. I didn't know this because I had a bag over my head. And it was an interrogation place. It was not a fun place. I spent between 3 and 4 days there. I don't really know. And some of my fellow compatriots who were there at the same time aren't really sure either, because we were unconscious for several times during this period. So we all agreed that it's somewhere between 3 and 4 days, because the timeline works out about right from other guys who were shot down later on in the war. So I spent some uncomfortable time with these guys, and that's where I was forced to make a video. The video I've never seen because I don't need to, but it was played on CNN. I'm sure a lot of you probably saw it. The reason that video showed up was because after being beaten from the neck down, these guys were very careful, and they were very good at their job, by the way. I was beaten from the neck down. I looked like I had been dipped in India ink. They didn't want my face to get distorted because they wanted me on film. I was not interested in giving them that film. I was doing okay. Things got a little tense when they decided, you know what, you're a pain in our butt. We're gonna crank up the heat. So they brought out the electricity, and once they brought out the electricity, things got really exciting. And I was on the hot seat for about 20 minutes till I passed out, and out in the hallway in a concrete bunker for another 20 minutes till I woke back up, back on the hot seat. And we did this for quite some time. The good thing about electricity is that it doesn't leave any marks, obvious. They ran a wire around one ear underneath my chin and then around the other ear and then put it on some kind of battery or something. I don't know what it was. I called it the Talkman. The bad thing about electricity is that when they turn it on, it makes every muscle in your body contract simultaneously. So I was chained to a chair at this point in time, and they cranked this stuff up. Pretty soon I'm a chocolate mess without too much trouble. Now, because I'm not thinking clearly, I can't answer any of their questions, so it's not so bad when you start thinking about it in the big scheme of things. And I'm passing out every so often, so these guys stopped asking me questions for a while. It's pretty good. Now, I haven't slept for probably 3 or 4 days now at this stage in my captivity. Finally, they got to the point where they really wanted me to make this video, and I really didn't want to do it. So, the guy says, you're here as a guest of Saddam, which is where you saw that from my title. You're here as a guest of Saddam. Nobody knows you're here. We're just going to shoot you. I said, well, I'm not going to say anything to that. I'm just going to sit there quietly with a bag over my head. And the goon on my right, he unmistakably unholsters a weapon, slams the slide back, and puts it up against my forehead. Well, by now I'm starting to get a little mad. I know this sounds crazy, but this is what happened. I'm starting to get a little mad. These guys they're just nuts. Anyway, so thinking back to some of my training, I go, well, I know that some semi-automatic pistols, if you push against the barrel, you can't squeeze the trigger because it's a safety. So you can't shoot yourself in the foot with your gun in the holster because the pressure on the barrel. So I know it's crazy. I leaned into the barrel, kind of like, you bastard. I leaned into the barrel. Well, this guy, he didn't like that much, so he pulls the gun away from me and then smacks me so hard with that pistol. He pistol whipped me. I flew across the room, chained to the chair, and I ended up somewhere on the side of the room, all crumbled up in a bunk, and I was unconscious for some time. Put me back out in the hallway, and we go back through this whole thing again. Finally, I'm an absolute vegetable and say, that's all I got. Okay, what do you want me to say? So they get all excited, and this is what gets really weird. They get all excited. They pull my hood up to right about here, and then they put a blindfold on me, pull my hood off, and then they try to comb my hair. Okay, I haven't slept for 3 days. I've been beaten. I've had electricity applied to me. I've soiled my clothes because there is no bathroom. So I'm not exactly one of the prettiest things you want to see on video. But I'm also upset that I said I would do it. When I started thinking about it, I said, okay, I know how to handle this. So the guy reads me what he wants me to say. Something along the lines, I was bombing the peaceful peoples of Iraq and, blah, 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 and I'm a war criminal and all this kind of stuff. Well, I wasn't going to say that war criminal stuff. But when he started talking, I said, okay, I can do this. And then when he finishes what he wants me to say, I said, no, I can't say that. And so we start all over again. Finally, I relented and said, that's all I got. I'll say what you want me to say. Well, by that time, he changed a bunch of things, and he must have had it written down, didn't like the way it sounded, and came back out. And so when he started telling me, he says, okay, here's what I want you to say. I'm going to read it to you, and you read it back to me. You say it back to me. I said, okay. So he's talking to me in this heavily accented voice. So I played it back. I read it back to him just like he said. I was bombing the peaceful peoples of Iraq. I was hit by a missile, you know. So when that was played, when it was aired, I guess it was aired on CNN a few days later. Up until that point in time, everyone thought I was dead. They thought it was KIA. So when it was aired, everybody knew I was alive. I was life good. All the guys in the squadron went nuts because they knew I was pulling their chain because the audio was still on, which was pretty amazing. Well, after I made that video, which is not one of my better moments in my life, I made that video. Next thing I know, we are scooped up. By that time, I think there were 6 of us, if I'm not mistaken. Ooh, did that? Yeah, okay. We were scooped up and we were taken to a second prison. We called the second prison the stockade because it was like, ooh, this is like an army stockade, you know, U-shape, you have a window, you got a little bit of food, you got to go exercise for 15 minutes, and you got to go to a latrine, which is a restroom for those who don't know what that is. You know, oh, it's not so bad. I mean, I can get by with this. Well, turns out that the Army really wasn't going to keep us very long. They were just making room for the next group that came into the interrogation bunker. So after about a week, 10 days in that place, we got scooped up in the middle of the night and got turned over to the secret police again. Well, the secret police kept us in the Bath Party headquarters in downtown Baghdad. So that's my third place. We called this place the Baghdad Biltmore in honor of the folks who spent lots of time in the Hanoi Hilton. And we were there for approximately 3 weeks. And it was essentially like a psychiatric prison. All the cells were 8 foot by 8 foot by 6 foot, 7 foot tall, tiled floor, wall, and ceilings. I can still count the 1,026 tiles on that place. It had no light, no bathroom, nothing. You were in this cell with a 4-inch thick steel door almost all the time, except for when they decided to come out and interrogate you. So about every 2 or 3 days, I would be yanked from my cell in the middle of the night, taken down to the other end of the building, interrogated for a couple hours, and then back into the cell. And basically, I was in solitary confinement for 5 weeks with maintenance beatings in between to make sure you're there. We were not fed. I lost 45 pounds in 46 days. And one of the rules about being a prisoner is that fat guys live and skinny guys die. Well, that's 5% body fat, 6% body fat came back to haunt me about this time. My body was going through everything that was left over, which is muscle, and I was shivering uncontrollably simply because it was so cold. People go, oh, it's cold in Baghdad? Yeah, cold in Baghdad in January when you're in a refrigerator that is a tiled room with no heat, no light. Yeah, it's an exciting time just to try to stay warm. The night of February 23rd, a very interesting thing happened. And when there was a small window in my cell, in this particular place, they had a louver like you would see on a heat vent. And I could get myself in the right spot, and I could look up in that louver and see outside. So that would be my form of entertainment. I would get underneath that window and look outside at nighttime because I could see the sun was setting. I'd look out at nighttime and watch the bombs fall. I could actually see the AAA and everything being shot up in the air. And that was my form of entertainment, was watching everybody bringing it downtown while my brothers kept going. Well, little did I know that one of my brothers was going to, let me see if I can stop this real quick. I know this is a little fuzzy. This is an F-117 video from February 23rd, 1991. If I can try to highlight this, there is a big building right in the center, right in the center. Can everyone see that? This video has been purposely fuzzed up because of the classification when it was released. So I can't get any better resolution, I'm sorry. Those crosshairs that you see right there, that is essentially the hallway in front of my cell. And you're going to see some interesting stuff happen here. And I'll explain this in a little bit. Here we go. There, you'll see one bomb fall a little wide, and then you're going to see a couple more. There's a wide one. Here goes one down in there. And that one was right through the roof above my head. So I've been on the giving end and the receiving end of 2,000 pounders. I like the giving end a whole lot better. So what happened here, it turns out that the guy who was doing this bombing mission ended up working for me and the staff a couple years later. And that's how I got this video. Yeah, so that was an exciting evening, but it was great. You probably don't know what it's like to be underneath or in the middle of this. And there were 4 bombs, by the way. That was number 2. There were 4 of these 2,000-pounders. They were going for a bunker in the basement. And these are called BLU 109s, which are the bunker busters that are made out of a solid piece of stainless steel with about 500 pounds of tritonol in it. And they were going all the way through, because a regular bomb would have broken up through all these floors. This is a 4-story building, and it's about a block long. And they were going for a bunker in the basement. If it wasn't for those delayed fuses, I would not be here. When the bombs go off in the basement, it sends an overpressure wave through the entire building, which shed the north face of the entire building shed, just like if you all remember that picture of the Murrow building from Oklahoma City from that bombing. Yeah, it shed that entire face. I was on the south side, so the guys who had cells on the north side all of a sudden have room with a view. The whole western half of the building was flat from the ground, from 4 stories to none. The central elevator shaft was still intact, and the eastern end, which is where we were, was still intact. Turns out we were on the 3rd floor. When the third bomb came through, it literally picked me up and threw me around that room like a well-hit 1-iron in a tile bathroom, if anybody knows the golfing thing. I mean, I was bounced off all 4 walls and the ceiling. I had scrambled into the door frame because that's the strongest part. When the 4th bomb hit, the overpressure moved that door, 4-inch thick steel door, moved that door like, the best way I can describe it is, does anybody remember the movie Terminator, where the guy punches that door and the door goes woof like that? That's exactly what happened. When that door hit the back of my head, I got launched across the room again. Scrambled back under it because I knew there was going to be 4. There's always 4. And sure enough, the 4th one comes in, and you know, the rest is history. Now, the good news about this is it got us out of this place because we were all going to die here. These guys were not going to let us live. We were all convinced of that because we were being systematically starved. During this time period, I'm sorry, I'm looking at my watch. I know that's rude. During this time period, we were fed what we call blood soup. It's about 4 to 6 ounces of the water that the guards were using to boil their food, their meat. So whatever was left over, they'd scoop it up and we'd get a little portion of it. Every once in a while you get a bean. That was a big deal. The longest I went without water was about 4 days. I don't highly recommend that to anyone. And the water that we did get was tainted with diesel fuel. You could smell it. You know, it was bad. But you drank it. You had nothing else. When the bombs and the dust literally settled, the guards had gone long. They booked on that first bomb. They were out of that place. Well, the next day, I mean, we're stuck in there. The next day, I digress. Hold on a second. I got a little too far ahead of myself. My wife always says, slow down. And I got ahead of myself. When the bombs stopped falling and we all settled out, everybody starts shouting, who's here? And we start going down names, naming names. And then there's a long pause, and somebody says, hey, I'm Bob Simon from CBS News. And we're all going, holy cow. We thought they bombed their own building and brought in the CBS News crew. And so we're yelling and screaming, hey, come down here, Bob, come down here. And he goes, no, I'm in a cell too. They had scooped Bob Simons and his team up about 4 or 5 days before this happened and threw him in the same prison that we were in. So the next day, the fire brigade and the guards come back, and they literally had to take cutting torches to get us out. Some of the guys got out pretty easily. I did not. It took a whole day to get me out of there because the door had expanded so much they couldn't cut it off. So, you know, no big deal. Well, they take us from this place because it's no longer usable. And guess where we go next? We go to they give us back to the civilians in the Army, and they put us in Abu Ghraib prison. And everybody knows where that is. We all heard about that place. Well, I've been on the wrong side of the bars in Abu Ghraib, and let me tell you something. the pictures that you saw from our troops ain't nothing about what happens in that prison. Okay, now, this is the first time that I'm actually out of my cell without a blindfold on. They take us to Abu Ghraib. We didn't know it was Abu Ghraib at the time, obviously. They take us to this prison. They throw us all in a cell, like Andy and Mayberry, open bar cell, and there's 15 of us huddled together in this open bar cell. And as soon as the guard kind of moves away, everybody's going, hey, who are you? Who are you? Who are you? And we're going through it, naming names and figuring things out. And we finally got to the point where we go, hey, who was the last guy shot down? We want to know because we haven't heard anything for almost 5 weeks. It's like, hey, is the ground war started yet? This was somewhere around February 24th. Is the ground war started yet? And the one guy who was the most recent shoot down had been, I think, February 18th. So it's only been 4 days, and he's got a pretty good scoop. Hey, what's going on? Well, he looks around, and the guards are gone, and he goes, well, they think you're dead. They've had your funeral. And he goes, oh, I guess I shouldn't say that. Yeah, no kidding, buddy. So then the big question was, has the ground war started? And you go, no, the ground war's not started. Well, at least it wasn't when I got shot down. He goes, what are they waiting for? What's the Army doing? Well, they weren't doing anything. They were just waiting. And sure enough, the ground war starts shortly after this event. So we were in Abu Ghraib for about a week. And the bad news is, about February 28th, all of a sudden the bombs stopped falling. So 5 or 6 days into our stay in Abu Ghraib prison, things get really quiet, and we started getting a little nervous. They separated us again, put us in 2 to a cell, so I actually had a roommate, which was great. First time I actually had somebody you could talk to and listen to that didn't speak a foreign language. And then, like I said, then the bomb stopped, no more jets at night. Now we're starting to get a little worried. This is not what we expected. We expected this war to be over and, we're out of here. Nope, stops. Around about March 2nd, guards come in, go, what's your name? Who are you? Blah, blah, same old story. Throw us on a bus, and off we go again. We go to someplace else. Now, we're back in the solitary, but no blindfold. That was pretty cool. All of a sudden, I end up in this room with a piece of foam rubber on the floor, a dog bowl, that's the best way to describe it, a dog bowl, and a light bulb with lights. I said, wow, this is cool. There's electricity now. Well, we called this place the halfway house because I could knock on the door and a guard would come and let me go to the bathroom. So I didn't have to use the left-hand corner for number 1, the right-hand corner for number 2. So this was a great place. Well, about 2 days into this stay, the guard comes and says, hey, what do you need? Hey, what's your name? What do you need? And I go, well, hey, I could use some clothing. I could use some food. The guy next door to me is sick. I'm making up anything. I didn't care. I just give this guy a laundry list of things. Maybe we'll get something. And he says, oh, you won't need any of that. You're leaving soon. And I thought, oh, yeah, here's another lie. And not more than an hour later, the same guard comes back, opens up my gate, says, step out. Well, I stepped out into the hallway, and I realized that I was at the end of a long hallway. The latrine was right next to me, but the long hallway stretched that way, and there was a pair of double swinging doors at the end, and I'm the last guy in line. And, he says something in Arabic, and everybody starts moving, and I'm thinking, I don't like the way this is going. So I'm taking 1 step forward and 2 back, 1 step forward, 2 back, and the guard behind me is shoving me, because I don't want to go through that double door. I don't know what's on the other side. And we're still not blindfolded, so this is starting to get weird. Well, when I got close enough to see what was happening, and the double doors had already been opened, and I looked out, and there's the lobby of a hotel. Gorgeous marble chandeliers like this room, and I'm thinking to myself, they had us in a prison in a hotel? What a crazy place. Well, sure enough, that's what it was. And as we walked into this lobby, we're all in a line, I see a group of soldiers lining the stairway out to the front door. And I immediately realized these guys are Republican guards because of their black berets. And these are not friendly people. And I'm thinking, oh man, they're going to walk us through the gauntlet. They're going to get us out in the street and shoot us. That's the way I felt. Now, I'm the last guy coming down the stairs here, so I'm doing the same thing. I'm leaning back, waiting to see what's going to happen. I get to the bottom of the stairs, and I can see out onto the street, and there is a bus with a red cross on the side. So I'm thinking, oh, maybe this is for real, or they're just playing with our minds. I don't know what to think yet. So I get down to the bottom of the stairs, and there is a gentleman, an Arabic gentleman, dressed in the full Arabic garb with the gold, and he's holding a giant bottle of Chanel No. 5, and he's spraying us as we walk by. So you can imagine how bad we smelled after 6 weeks of being in there. And oh, by the way, I'm here to tell you, you can wear the same set of underwear for 45 days. So I'm the last guy out the door, and I step across the sidewalk up into the bus, and a gentleman named Max says, "Hi, my name's Max. I'm from the International Red Cross. You have now in our control. Let's close the door and get out of here." And I said, "Amen, brother." And off we went. And they took us to the Novotel in downtown Baghdad, because they commandeered that hotel, and they actually put electricity. They commandeered generators, and we spent the night there. They had a small medical team that was taking care of some of the guys who were even more injured than I was, and we spent the night there. Well, first thing we asked about was, "You got any food?" And one of my British compatriots, who is absolutely hilarious, he goes, "Wait a minute, you're Swiss, right?" He says, "Where's the damn chocolates?" And the Swiss guy goes, "I'll be right back." And he runs downstairs and brings like 20 pounds of chocolate, which is the absolute worst thing you could possibly eat without, not having any food for 5 weeks. But we gorged ourselves anyway. I took 3 baths, because I hadn't had a bath or a shower in 6 weeks. I took 3 baths. Every time I emptied the toilet or emptied the tub, I had to scrape the ring out and do it again and do it again. Finally, after the 3rd bath, I felt like I might be clean. We left the next day down to the airport, watched an airplane come in, and offload a bunch of Iraqi prisoners as sort of an exchange, I guess. They got off that airplane holding bags of food, bottles of water. They had just gone to Nordstrom's. It was really incredible. These guys they're coming off with more than they got on with. So they get off the airplane, and we get on that airplane. As we're taxiing out, everybody's sitting up against the window. Everybody's real quiet. We're taxiing out. I'm watching the AAA batteries. The guns have now been tilted down towards our airplane, and they're following us as we're taxiing down the runway with the guns. So that was a little uncomfortable. We got airborne. Everybody's pretty happy. We weren't really shouting and cheering until the pilot comes on and goes, "Hey, we are getting ready to be escorted. If you look off to your right, you will see a pair of U.S. fighters." So a pair of F-15s join the formation, and these guys are so happy. They're doing barrel rolls and pumping out flares around the airplane, and they're having this, and we're cheering. Now we're yelling. Now we're happy. Now things are going really good for us. And then the pilot says, "Hey, we're now over friendly territory. We're back in Saudi." They took us to Riyadh. We landed in Riyadh, and before we got off the airplane, everybody sort of got a little bit of military bearing back, and they said, "Okay, we're going to get off the airplane in rank order with the most senior officer down there." I was like number 4 off the airplane as a major. I got to the bottom of the stairs, and there was General Schwarzkopf standing there along with the other commanding generals. And I saluted him, shook his hand, and I noticed, and if everybody remembers who General Schwarzkopf is, he's a big bear of a guy. And he's 6'5". He's taller than me by a long shot. And I shook his hand. I saluted him, shook his hand, looked at his face, and he had a tear rolling down his face. And I said to him, "Sir, I know exactly how you feel." So, frequently asked questions. Now, I know that folks are passing questions around, but these are the ones that I like to tell folks about. How many POWs were there? Well, you can read the numbers, but there were 21 Americans. And, of course, the 5 CBS News crew. Did anybody die in captivity? No. Not that we can determine. How were you treated? Well, you heard that story. Geneva Convention wasn't in their vocabulary. How did you pass the time? Well, just like I said, staying warm became a priority, and then evening fireworks displays. Yeah, how did I get out? Hey, we won. How did your life change by the experience? Well, I don't have bad days anymore, because I know what a bad day really is. Thank you. So you're only as good as your training, just like I said. We learned from our prior experiences. The reason I said that 6 weeks doesn't compare to 6 years, A very good friend of mine spent 5.5 years in a Hanoi Hilton, and he lives about 2 miles from me in Tucson. And his name's Bob Barnett. And he is just an amazing individual. He's 93 now, still sharp as a tack. And the first time I met him, we were talking about our experiences and stuff like that. And I said, yeah, man, 6 weeks doesn't count. He goes, oh, you missed the boring part. So I'm like, okay, I'll take your word for it, Bob. So your mind is in control, not your body. Sometimes you just got to say, nope, I'm not listening to you. So there's another way of saying this, is embrace the suck, okay? You got to embrace the suck. And finally, this is not a bad day. This is the wreckage of my airplane. Not many people get to show these pictures and survive. So 257 was the tail number. That was not the airplane that had my name painted on it. The airplane with my name painted on it had a maintenance problem, so I had to jump into this spare aircraft, and I didn't get a chance to do my pre-flight ritual, which was I would walk around the airplane, check for everything, make sure it was all ready to go, and then when I got to the exhaust, I would spit into the exhaust pipe as a form of good luck. I didn't get to do that day. Hence, one less landing. But this is a great day. The video you saw was E.T. That's his HUD film. And that was another one of my wingmen. They met me at the bottom of the stairs after the receiving line of the generals before I ended up on the hospital ship. So, with that, Doug, you want to have a seat? Do I get to sit down now?
Sure, please sit down.
Thank you. I got a drink of water, too.
What a story, huh? And I have a confession to make. I have heard this story from Tico a couple times, and I think the thing I was most scared of was skinny people die in captivity. So I have bulked up a little bit. And I'll deal with it. That's right. Great presentation. Thank you very much. Quick question. What happened to your wingman?
Well, he ended up getting back to base and everything else, and he flew and ended up taking over as a flight commander after I was on the ground for 6 weeks. So he ended up taking my flight commander's position, and he became the commensurate air warrior. He just refused to not take a mission, to not do it. I mean, he was incredible, and he ended up being a captain at Southwest Airlines after his military career. So he did extremely well for himself. Right. I didn't expect anything less from him.
Next question. Was there anything in your Air Force training that prepared you for what happened during your captivity? And was the training fairly accurate and realistic?
The answer to your question is yes. Every aviator in all the military services goes through a SERI school, four-letter acronym, FLA, a series of survival, escape, or survival, evasion, resistance, escape. That's what SERI stands for. And the Air Force has a water survival class and then a field survival class, land survival. And the land survival, they put you through 2 or 3 weeks of training, videos, that kind of stuff. And then they throw you out in the field and you're supposed to survive for a week. And they grab you and throw you in a mock POW camp. So they can't beat you up there, but they can make your life pretty uncomfortable. And that's what the idea was. And you had to not only learn from the experience, you had to learn how to resist. And so, yeah, that training certainly served me well. It's amazing how much that came rushing back to me in the parachute.
Right, and I heard during your story, too, the number of times you bounced back. They would torture you, make some progress. You would refuse, and you got prepared for the next torture that you knew was coming to get a little more, so
yep.
To bouncing back.
That's correct.
Did you get a feeling from your captors in Iraq that they knew they were fighting a lost cause, that this was going to be a fairly short war?
Yeah, I was fairly confident because of the nights that I had that window where I could look out and watch the fireworks display. What would happen would be the bombs would start falling. Then the AAA would start, and then the air raid sirens would go off. It's totally out of sequence. And I said, these guys don't know what's happening to them. This is going to be a short war. I had tax day in my brain. I said, I'll be out here by April 15th. This is a piece of cake. So, yeah, I had a sense that they were not winning. Now, my interrogators at one time, I had one interrogator get really upset because this was right after, I'm sure everybody who's old enough remembers the baby milk factory episode where, yeah, we bombed some baby milk factory, blah, 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 blah. This guy got really upset about that, and he was, yelling at me and beating the crap out of me. And then finally he says, but your people are bombing these bridges, and they doing it at night. How do we stop that? And I told him, build more bridges, and that didn't work out well.
Did you feel at any time that your captors knew you were making fun of them with that accent before the video?
I don't think so. I really don't.
Right.
I expected a lot of retribution once they saw it, but they didn't seem to be upset. I mean, like I said, we were scooped up and sent somewhere else right after that.
Remember that famous Pueblo picture? I think it was a Pueblo.
Yeah.
Where they were all giving the finger.
The Hawaiian good luck sign. Yeah.
Yeah, and the North Koreans didn't recognize it. Let's go to the next one here. Speculative question, certainly, but how long do you think you could have lasted physically and mentally under the conditions you were being tortured in?
That's a really good question. This type of situation is intensely personal. So my opinion is probably not someone else's opinion. I would say that I probably had another 3, maybe 4 weeks if the conditions did not improve. And that's simply because I was wasting away so rapidly in the cold and lack of food. I probably had another 3 or 4 weeks, and that's about all. Mentally, I was fine, but physically, I was losing the battle.
Again, that's why I've bulked up. How did you mentioned being in solitary confinement and not seeing other people for a long period. How did you keep your mind occupied?
Oh, very, very good question. Primarily, well, like I told you, there were 1,026 bricks in that. I counted bricks. You have to set a pattern for your day, even though you don't know what day it is or when a real day is coming or going. But if I would fall asleep and I would wake up, then I would say, okay, this is morning, and I would set a pattern where I did exercise. In other words, I walk around the room in one pattern, another around the room for a little while. Then I'd sit and think about my family for a little while. Then I would, sit and think about other things and do some mental math and try to do things that kept my mind occupied and not concentrating on, as you say, the highs and the lows. You have to try to keep your mental state at a medium. You don't want to get too excited or too depressed. You want to try to stay in the middle somewhere. So occupying your mind with certain things and, mentally picturing stuff and building things in your brain, it worked pretty well for me. I'm an engineer by schooling, so that's what happened.
Here's an interesting question.
Okay.
What is the best perk of being a former BOW?
I think being a former BOW is the best perk. Now, to honestly answer that question, I don't believe I have any perks, if you will. It's humbling to go into a VA facility for the Veterans Administration and be treated like your royalty. That, I think, is probably one of the biggest perks just because of my status, and it's like it's on your card kind of thing. I'd say that's probably the biggest perk.
Okay. In retrospect, would you have wished this hadn't happened to you? Or put another way, is there a longer-term benefit that you found from this experience, really trying to make the best of it?
Well, I've always been a half-full person. I've always been an optimist, always had a positive outlook on things. So the only thing I would say that this really focused was that I was right all along, that having a positive attitude is really the way that gets you through bad situations, and not focusing on negative things, focus on positive things. I would say that's what really brought it out.
What were your religious experiences, if any? Did you ever pray for death?
No, I don't profess any organized religion as a, but I am a person of faith. I believe in certain things, nothing that would be considered organized religion, I guess. But as they say, there are no atheists in foxholes. And I whipped through the rosary about 6 times on that first bomb. But I never wished for death.
Right. What were the questions during the interrogation sessions of a political or a tactical nature? In other words, Jeff, did they want to know what the targets were, how many planes you had, or were they more political?
Yeah, initially it was all tactical and strategic information. Now you have to remember that in the Iraqi military, a major is a fairly high rank. So they just assumed because I was a major that I knew everything. Well, hell, you're a major, you don't know nothing. And two days after my shoot down, anything I had for tactical information was totally worthless anyway. So I didn't have anything to tell them that and remember, it's a totalitarian state. So everything they were asking me initially, they probably could have found in Jane's All the World's Aircraft, that book about airplanes. They're asking about how fast, what. And of course, I'm telling them stories, but they're writing it all down, really nothing strategic. The political stuff, really, I don't believe I ever was asked or indoctrinated in such a way to say, oh yeah, other than you were bombing the peaceful peoples of Iraq, that kind of stuff. But no, nothing.
Okay. You mentioned in the last slide the number of POWs from different countries. To the degree that when you were together, did you form a military unit? Did you have a chain of command? Was somebody issuing commands to resist or anything else?
When we finally got thrown into a community setting, we figured out who the senior ranking officer was. It happened to be an 06 colonel.
From the U.S.?
From the U.S., yeah. But they're really, then we were only in that environment for maybe a day or two. And so we were separated back into isolated clusters again. So we really didn't have an opportunity to form any kind of hierarchy like they did in Vietnam, where they were in a long-term situation where everybody was together in community cells. So no, the answer is no, we didn't have a chance to do that.
Great. Has the Air Force or any of the services changed their training? You mentioned SEER School. Based on the experiences in Iraq that you or others may have had?
I'm not 100% sure of that because I retired from the Air Force in '99, and I wasn't going to go back to school for that. I think I passed that one, and so I don't know if they changed anything, but I was asked to make a video for the Air Force as part of the training, and I do know that the Marine Force Recon guys actually showed some of that stuff because General Johnston's son's son, so that's his grandson, General Johnston's grandson, is now in the Force Marines, and he called me up in the middle of his schooling and said, "Oh my God, I thought it was your younger brother. I just had Thanksgiving with you."
After the Vietnam War, we established diplomatic relations, had an ambassador over there, and many people have visited Vietnam, former veterans or not. Do you think in coming years you would ever entertain going back to Iraq? Any desire or no desire?
Well, frankly, I didn't get to see very much of it. So, from a sightseeing perspective, it might be interesting. But the places that I were held are probably no longer in existence. I know that one building isn't.
Yeah.
So no, not really.
And the final question I have here is extremely difficult, so you might want to take a few seconds. What is better, the Air Force or American Airlines?
Who put you up to that?
I swear to God, it's right here.
Who put you up to that? I know who put you up to that. I do not miss, I retired from American Airlines in 2012. I do not miss my commercial flying near as much as I missed my military flying. So there's your answer. Is that political enough?
We have time for one, maybe two more. Anything from the audience? It's hard to really see up here.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I'm in the interrogation room again.
So,
Except I
yes,
did-
sir, in the back.
Thank you very much.
Very kind of you, sir. Are you standing up? Yes.
Can you tell us what your original mission was?
Oh, yeah. I was part of a large package of aircraft doing the first daylight raid in downtown Baghdad. I had 8 aircraft in my flight, and we were bombing the oil refinery on the bend in the river in Tigris. It was really bad map, sorry about that, but the Tigris River makes a big U-turn, and there is an oil refinery right in that particular bend, and that's where we were bombing. Now, the other aircraft, the other 8 from my squadron were bombing an airfield to the northwest, and then there was another 32 airplanes from other squadrons that were bombing a weapon storage area in the southeast corner of Baghdad. And by the time you added all the support aircraft up, it was 74 aircraft. So it was a pretty big package.
2 closing thoughts that I know I'll have as I lay my head down tonight. One, I think we should be very grateful for people like Colonel Tice and many in this room that have put their lives on the line to give us the freedoms that we have today. And I know I'll be grateful and be the glass half full guy. So thank you for that. And the second thing, I've known Tico for a while, and I hope if I ever face similar circumstances, which I probably won't with my weight, that I could be half the person he was, with the courage, bravery. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for spending your time, and God bless.
We hope you enjoyed this presentation from Marines Memorial Association and Foundation. To learn more about the organization, visit marinesmemorial.org. To make a donation to support programs that honor the legacy of military service, visit ourmission.marinesmemorial.org.